Growing up, I really loved unicorns. I specifically remember getting a birthday cake with this cute little pink unicorn topper on it. At the time, being a little boy who hated girls and girl stuff and the thought of being girly, it was really the only traditionally girly thing I allowed myself to actively enjoy at the time. Then later on in my life, I fell in love with horror. Horror literature, online horror stuff, and especially horror movies.
So you can imagine my glee when one day a trailer for a movie popped up online starring a bunch of killer unicorns. And Paul Rudd. When I first watched this trailer, I was so excited. It felt weirdly made for me. And once I was sat there watching it in the theater, all I could think about was how perfect it would be for an episode of Zoe with an E. I mean, the title and thumbnail were basically given to me on a silver platter, and fortunately for me, the movie was actually good. So without further ado, my name is Zoe with an E, and this is Death of a Unicorn.
The movie opens with a father-daughter duo on a plane waiting for their flight to take off. The daughter leans over on her father's shoulder to get some sleep, which is so sweet. Until he shoves her off to pick up some business papers he dropped into the aisle. I wonder if this is symbolic of anything. After a very Edgar Wright transitional sequence, the father-daughter duo are driving through the gorgeous Hungry Alps. The father, Elliot, played by Paul Rudd, is here on a work trip, staying with his boss for the weekend. His daughter, Ridley, played by Jenna Ortega, was invited to tag along, because Elliot's boss supposedly knows about the tough times they've lived through together, specifically in losing Ridley's mother. I adore the father-daughter relationship between these two. It feels so realistic and relatable.
Stop picking. Hey, stop picking. Come on, dog.
Just try to flick me?
I mean, if you can't relate to a parent telling you shit like, stop picking, did you even have parents? They have such good chemistry together. The writing and performances here make it feel like such a real father-daughter relationship.
I mean, this entire nature preserve was donated by them.
Yeah, but you know that philanthropy is just, it's reputation laundering for the oligarchy.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, maybe on the art squad.
Which actually makes a ton of sense considering the role of Elliot was literally written for Paul Rudd. Writer-director Alex Schaffman had known Paul Rudd prior to making this movie, and the two of them had wanted to work together for a while before it. And so he wrote the role with the intentions of casting him, and eventually Rudd would become the first actor to sign on to the movie. Jenna Ortega was cast later, but she's also great in the role. She serves as the straight man of the movie, which was apparently a pretty difficult task given how everyone else in the film plays such large comedic roles.
I had the worst job because I wasn't even in on the action. I had to try to stop the action and look at them with tears in my eyes half the time, and that was hell.
The duo keep driving on, interrupted by a call from Elliot's boss asking where they are, since apparently they're pretty late. The call keeps adding pressure to Elliot, who's already stressed out of his mind, so he puts the pedal to the floor and the phone to his face. Kids, never text and drive. Unless your car is CGI, in which case you'll be fine. Elliot and Ridley hop out of a car to see what they just hit, and that's not a possum. Elliot begins spiraling even further, which is fair enough.
I once told my boss that I couldn't come in because I didn't want to miss the birth of my firstborn child, and they told me to go fuck myself. If you tell them that you can't come in because you hit a unicorn, they might just fuck you.
While Elliot's having his moment, Ridley notices the unicorn's horn begin to glow like a TV and touches it, sending her down just a terrible trip. She sees this big galaxy in the shape of a unicorn horn, which is such a good visual. Honestly, this whole sequence as a whole is... Huh. The Death of a Unicorn. That would make a good name for a... Holy shit! With the unicorn shoved into the boot, Elliot and Ridley finally reach their destination. Leopold Manor.
Leopold Manor was played by a real house that the crew found in the Hungarian countryside. At least the exterior of it was. They had to build a set for the inside to get it to look the way they wanted to. In fact, most of this movie was shot on location in Hungary, and it really pays off. Not only is this house beautiful, but the surrounding mountains too.
They're greeted here first by Shep Leopold, the youngest of the Leopold family, played by Will Poulter. Next up, Belinda Leopold, played by T. Leone, walks in, the matriarch of the Leopold family. Together, Belinda and Shep walk Ridley and Elliot through to Odell Leopold, played by Richard E. Grant, the patriarch of the Leopold family who built his own business, from which he is the boss of Elliot. He's also terminally ill and needs Elliot to help him out with a few final business decisions before he dies. Elliot has a big promotion riding on this weekend trip with the Leopolds, which is why when Ridley, all upset about accidentally murdering a mythical beast and whatnot, wants to leave as soon as possible, he signals for her to pull herself together. She leaves to go to the bathroom, and while washing off her face, she also washes away her acne. Fucking gross. Meanwhile, in the Leopold living room, while Elliot is discussing plans of business with the family, his glasses suddenly start making it difficult for him to see, Spider-Man style. With all of this weirdness going on, Ridley pulls Elliot away from his meeting, begging him to leave since something just feels off.
And if things felt off before, they're about to feel a lot more off, because it turns out that Unicorn might not be all the way dead.
Their car starts shaking like crazy, and everyone rushes outside to see what's going on.
Okay, now granted, this is gonna sound odd, but
The Unicorn crashes out of the car ready to throw hoods when one of the Leopold's workers shoots it dead, giving us the movie's second death of a unicorn.
What exactly are we saying this is, though?
I think we know exactly what it is.
What I can say with total confidence is Elliot here has hit a horse-like mammalia, vertebralia. Would that be the correct
Yes.
classification?
No, but it is horse-shaped with some sort of protrusion or growth.
right, that's my working theory too. Feral horse. Mad, tumor-ridden, jumps in the middle of the road. Not the fault of any one driver, per se.
It's a fucking unicorn.
We have to talk about how fantastic this movie's cast is, because holy shit. The movie's ensemble cast all play off of each other brilliantly. There's no bad or even just okay performance here. Everyone is acting their ass off. It makes for a wildly funny and entertaining movie, and I'm glad to see that this energy was present at all times amongst the cast, on and off of set.
What was nice about being on a stage in that space is that people didn't disappear off to their trailers. Like, we all stayed under this kind of same tent and just like had so much fun in between setups and waiting for the next scene or whatever. And in a way, the playfulness and silliness that we enjoyed as a cast just kind of carried on to set.
You can tell how much fun they had making this movie, and it's absolutely infectious. When I wrote this script, I described it as being the funniest movie released so far this year, and I'm not sure if it still holds that title, but it definitely did at the time. So it's nice to see the cast enjoyed it just as much as I did.
Do they live in that little
portal
cave?
that they could go into in the sky. Yes,
You
they
know
do
the
live
cave
in a
that's
cave.
in the film?
We introduced that at the top
But then
of
is
the
that?
movie.
But then is that a?
How's this working for your jet lag, Paul?
Is,
Where the am I?
After coming to the conclusion that this is in fact a unicorn, Ridley and Elliot bring up the fact that after killing the unicorn and accidentally getting covered in its blood, all of their ailments like acne, allergies, and being blind seem to have cleared up. I'm just saying, one of those is a little more extreme than the others. Odell, being cancer-ridden and desperate, takes note of this and together with the rest of the Leopolds begins doing some extreme mental gymnastics to justify keeping this discovery to themselves.
I mean, as someone who works with NGOs, believe me, you do not want a bunch of bureaucrats mucking around in a delicate situation, do you?
Right.
In my opinion, we have a debt owed to the spirit of this animal to navigate by our own moral compasses and allow its mysteries to reveal themselves so that we can honor it in a manner that the public sector simply cannot.
They also guilt and scare Elliot into going along with this, which he does because he doesn't want to piss them all off and lose his job.
Get prepared to see a lot of this. The Leopolds do not take no for an answer.
They haul the unicorn inside and Ridley retreats to her room. Elliot comes in to check on her and we get more of their really great relationship, only now it's a little strained since Ridley isn't super on board with taking advantage of a mythical creature. Mythical.
What?
Elliot tries to comfort her.
All right, look. You had a weird experience, and I will pay for the extra therapy, but I don't see what we stand to gain by making this weekend all about you and your special connection to a magical dead horse.
Keyword being tries. I feel so bad for Elliot. We see him try to make up for it and connect to his daughter, but the fact that he keeps putting work first is getting in the way.
This dynamic is really nice and really makes you feel bad for Elliot. He isn't a bad guy, his heart is in the right place. He just wants to be able to provide for his daughter, especially after the death of her mum. But time and time again, and especially as the movie goes on, he puts more and more at stake over the promise of more and more to give to Ridley, not realizing that he's setting a terrible example for her and also putting her in danger. He does care for Ridley, but that care only shows in the stability that he can give to her. I mean, when he first hit the unicorn, the only thing that he was thinking of was that it was okay because he had the damage waivers for the car. It's a pretty well written and consistent character, and Paul Rudd does a great job portraying him.
After his argument with Ridley, Elliot heads outside for some air and runs into Shep chilling out in the hot tub like the biggest asshole on the planet.
Why didn't you get in? We can hot tub about it.
Chilling out until some ominous roars echo out from the woods, to which he immediately chickens out. Meanwhile, Ridley is in her room been researching unicorns and finds out that these guys are worse news than the bronies could ever imagine. Turns out that according to legend, throughout history, many people have tried to tame or take advantage of the unicorn, and it almost always ends the same way. Bad. She tries to get some shut-eye but ends up having some unicorn nightmares.
You too?
These dreams are interrupted by some crewmate looking ass scientists nabbing her from her room and bringing her downstairs to run some tests. The Leopolds have hired these guys privately to figure out whether or not the healing properties the unicorn's blood had on Ridley and Elliot can be replicated. And normally I'd say this is a bad thing, but
It seems to be some sort of organ.
Science lady can get it, that's all I'm saying. After doing a bunch of science shit, they begin running unicorn blood straight into the veins of Odell to see if it can cure his cancer. While on what very well may be his deathbed, Odell promises Elliot that if this works, he'll make Elliot his official business partner. Ridley, still turned off by all of this unicorn tampering, researches unicorns further, but she's interrupted when Shep notices something a little weird.
Dad?
Odell, you look rested.
So the blood transfusion worked, and it turns out that Odell is completely cured of his cancer.
Cancer? That's the biggest one!
Now that he's cured and full of energy, Odell's first thought is profit, and upon coming to terms with how limited their supply is, the Leopolds realize they're sitting on a gold mine. Immediately they get to work, calling up any rich fuck with health problems, roping in Elliot to help out. It's shown through this really cool and chaotic long shot, which must have been a bitch to get right. I also love the detail that these guys are drinking unicorn cocktails. Like, these guys are the absolute worst. However, Ridley chimes in once again, letting them know that according to her research, this is an astronomically terrible idea. But they immediately brush her off, with Elliot doing nothing to defend her. I mean, they quite literally walk all over her research, so she, understandably, walks off to go sit in the car. And this is where things start getting funky. As they begin moving the unicorn, all the lights and technology go out, and of course the Leopolds send Elliot out to see what's going on, because they can never suffer the consequences of their own actions. And when Elliot goes out to check on the science people, well... Oh boy. Shit's about to get horny. The lead scientist guy gets impaled by the unicorn horn, leaving his intestines to fall out, and we get this kick-ass Shaun of the Dead style shot through his stomach. Holy shit. Then we get this awesome shot of the unicorn silhouette as it roars outside, and what a cool way to hold off on completely giving away your movie's monster, while also giving us everything we need to be afraid of it. Immediately the Leopolds get to work hauling the dead unicorn back inside, completely knocking Elliot to the floor in the process while their goons begin shooting at the unicorn outside. Bear in mind, Ridley is still out there in the car, and for some reason the unicorn begins targeting her, trying to bash its way into the car. Elliot breaks her out and the goons close in on the unicorn, but considering regular ass horses are basically 1,000 pounds worth of pure muscle, and this is a magically upgraded version of that, guess what happens? The unicorn cleans house, and it even knocks one of the soldiers to the ground and crushes its head with its hoof. Oh my fucking god, this is a perfect movie. With the soldiers cleared off, it's pretty much just Ridley and Elliot stuck out there with that thing now. Ridley is stuck under the car and Elliot is on the opposite side of the car to the unicorn. Before the unicorn can close in on Elliot and send his ass to the quantum realm, Ridley makes a run for it as a diversion.
And I'm sorry, but how did you manage to make a unicorn of all things this fucking terrifying?
It gallops after her at full speed, and if it did that to me, I would need a shower and a clean pair of underwear. Jesus Christ. Ridley is able to take cover in this weird little outhouse thingy, and even though the unicorn could absolutely tear that dinky little wooden door down, it doesn't. Instead, it calms down completely and slowly pushes its horn through the gap, signaling for Ridley to touch it like she did before. But before she can, one of the Leopold's goons begins shooting at it, startling it away.
Let's take a second to unpack, because I really love this sequence. A movie about a killer unicorn could have so easily just been a one-trick pony. You stab a guy with a horn, you stab another guy with a horn, you stab another guy with a horn. You get the picture. They so easily could have fallen back on the shock factor of it being a unicorn doing the killing and called it a day. Not unlike those cheap horror movies that use public domain kids characters as their villains for the sake of cheap shock. Instead, it really feels like they put a lot of thought into how to fully utilize a unicorn as a horror villain.
It stabs people with its horns, sure, but it also uses its hooves and stupid amount of muscle mass to crush heads. It gallops after people with some terrifying force and speed. It tanks shots thanks to its thick skin. This isn't just some half-assed villain, it's a terrifying tank. With Unicorn number 2 temporarily out of the picture, everyone takes a minute inside to discuss their plan of action. On one side, you have Ridley, who feels she has some kind of connection to the unicorns after touching the horn in the beginning of the movie. Her theory is that they were just attacked by the parent of the unicorn from the beginning of the movie, and that they should just leave it their baby and go. Meanwhile, the Leopolds think they should keep the baby and also kill the parent, because they're a bunch of rich, entitled assholes.
I'm so thankful people like this don't exist in real life.
Elliot, still more afraid to lose his job than he is to die at the hoof of a unicorn, goes along with the Leopolds, dismissing Ridley's plan entirely. But he doesn't completely throw her under the bus.
We have a moral imperative to harvest every last one. Got it, horse girl?
Hey, easy.
Again, he isn't a terrible guy. Above all else, he just wants to provide for his daughter. And in moments like this, he will jump to bat for her. I just like how consistent he is in that. He's super well written.
By the way, this whole scene, Odell is silently eating a unicorn steak, which they must have cut from a baby unicorn, and it's so gross. The wet and squishy sound design as he slices up and chews the unicorn meat, the weird glistening purple inside of the steak, and the look of realization on Ridley's face when she catches on makes the whole scene so fucking uncomfortable. I love it. Unfortunately, since the Leopolds are the more powerful bunch, their plan goes forward, and they prepare to hunt themselves a unicorn.
Side note, I love the random strings of British slang this one goon throws out.
Pack your scram and call your nan.
It's completely batshit, but it's so funny.
At this point, everyone splits into two groups. Elliot, Odell, and a bunch of goons who will go out to hunt the unicorns while Ridley, Belinda, Shep, and Science Girl hang back at the manor. Shep purposefully makes an excuse to get out of unicorn hunting, and then the first thing he does without being supervised is nick a bunch of unicorn horn sample and then snort it. No, I'm not kidding. Meanwhile, Ridley takes another look at her research and realizes that the unicorn isn't actually hurt, which is really bad because the unicorn hunting team is already deep in the woods tracking the thing down. Ridley tries to message her dad about the impending doom they're walking straight into, but her messages aren't able to reach him. Meanwhile, Shep, high off of his balls on unicorn horn, is demanding that Science Lady straight up saw the horn off of a baby unicorn. But as it turns out, according to Science Lady, the unicorn is still using the horn. Apparently the unicorn won't stay dead, and it's using the horn to bring itself back to life. So he demands she saws it off before it has the chance to come back, and once she finally gets it off, Ridley's connection to it is severed. But on the bright side, her messages to her dad finally send. On the not so bright side, it's a bit too late.
So apparently there's a third unicorn, the second parent to the baby one, and now they're being tag teamed in the pitch black by two very non-injured, very pissed off unicorns. So they're fucked, basically they're fucked.
The unicorns pick off all of the goons, leaving just Elliot and Odell. They flee back to the Leopold Manor, but they can't outrun these forces of nature, and Odell ends up in a standoff with the two pissed off uni parents. Odell, being the smug son of a bitch he is, tries to sweet talk the two of them, and it goes about as well as you'd think.
Aren't you the most magnificent thing? You like me, don't you? I'm harmless. Just a little touch. Now you can show me your secrets. Come on. That's right. Now, give me the horn.
You can say whatever you want about this movie, but in times like these, you can't deny how satisfying it is to see a bunch of rich assholes get murdered by a family of unicorns. With Odell thoroughly out of the picture, Griff takes matters into his own hands and begins boarding the doors and windows. What's that? Who's Griff?
You don't know Griff? Griff! The butler for the Leopolds who has been here literally the entire time. Griff!
Griff is played by Anthony Carrigan, and he is fantastic in the role. He's always in the background of this movie, and while he doesn't get many big moments or even that many lines, he plays the fuck out of his role. He's always so over this pompous family, I love it. And his nonchalant way of dealing with the unicorns as though they're just as bad as his regular job already is hilarious.
If you'll just excuse me for me, thank you.
While they're arguing about what to do, the power goes out, and since the gate out the estate is shut, that means they're locked in with the unicorns unless they can get it open manually. And as Griff explains, the only way to do that is if someone leaves the house to get to the gate's controls, which would leave them vulnerable to the unicorns. They also decide that to distract the unicorns, someone else will have to take the baby outside as a diversion. Pretty quickly, the remaining Leopolds decide that Griff is the most qualified to operate the gate controls, which Griff is obviously against because that means almost definite death. But after a vote, it's decided that he'll do it anyway. I mean, even Science Lady throws him under the bus, which, come on, dude. And immediately afterwards, the Leopolds make her go out with the baby unicorn as a law, which, like, yeah, who did you think they were gonna go after next?
I'm so thankful that this doesn't have any real life relevance.
So they move forward with this plan. Griff goes to the gate controls and Science Lady wheels out the baby unicorn while Belinda, Shep, Ridley and Elliot make for a car. Griff begins opening the gate and Science Lady comes face to face with the unicorns.
But remember, while they may be giving back the unicorns their baby, they aren't technically giving it back the whole thing, because they still have the unicorn's horn. So this would be like if I kidnapped your baby and gave it back without its feet. You'd be pissed off.
That's what you get for throwing Griff under the bus. Speaking of Griff, he manages to escape, leaving Elliot, Ridley, Shep and Belinda as the final four facing the unicorns. And at this point, the final four splits into two separate final twos, with Elliot finally putting his foot down and telling the Leopolds to go fuck themselves, prioritizing himself and his daughter over his work. The two groups begin going for each other's throats, only stopping because the unicorns already dibsed their throats. The two uni parents begin breaking into the house from different angles, forcing Elliot and Ridley upstairs and Shep and Belinda downstairs, each with one pissed off parent to deal with. Downstairs, the remaining two Leopolds think they have the upper hand since they have the unicorn horn, but it turns out the case they left it in is completely empty, rendering them entirely fucked. As it turns out, Elliot stole the horn for himself. He explains to Ridley that he only took it to make sure that they had something to fall back on once all of this is over, and for the first time in the movie he admits that this was the wrong thing to do. He recognizes that although his intentions were right, the way he went about it was selfish, and it's landed him and his daughter, the person he claimed to be doing all of this for, in some serious hot water. So he locks his daughter on the balcony outside and distracts the unicorn, leading it away from her using the baby's horn and his balls of fucking steel. Meanwhile downstairs, Shep is showcasing his balls of wet dirt by leaving his mother to die to the unicorn despite having the perfect opportunity to save her.
I can't show this death at all, but the unicorn absolutely guts this poor, selfish, rich bitch. And it is brutal, and another example of how this movie didn't take the easy way out on its kills.
Now that Ridley is safe from her unicorn, she jumps from a balcony into some bushes where Shep immediately takes her hostage. He uses her and the baby unicorn to lure out the big daddy unicorn.
I really want to take a minute real quick to talk about the unicorn designs in this movie because they kick so much ass.
Writer-director Alex Schaffman and his team took a lot of time designing the unicorns of this movie. He didn't want them to just feel like horses with horns, instead wanted them to feel like an entire beast of their own. And so, on top of extensive research into real-life unicorn myths, he also took a look at prehistoric horses, likening the unicorn in this movie as being to the modern-day horse what a woolly mammoth would be to a modern-day elephant. On top of that, they also took a lot of inspiration from other animals like wolves and mandrills to make sure that the unicorns could move and express themselves properly, which really shows in scenes like this where the unicorn is all snarly.
The work that went into bringing these unicorns to life cannot be understated. The design process being as well researched as it was, as well as them using a good blend of practical and digital effects, really brings these unicorns to life and sets them apart from other iterations seen in other media. They managed to make unicorns threatening. I think that in and of itself is pretty impressive. And it makes sense for the unicorns to be as well developed as they are, because they were kind of a catalyst for the movie's whole existence.
The movie started with the seed of the opening sequence, and that was just like, I had no idea where it was going from there, and I just kind of started researching unicorns, because it was something about that scene and the idea of hitting a unicorn with your car that was like really, I don't know, potent and felt like nothing I'd seen in a movie before. And so, yeah, that led me into just researching a lot of unicorn mythology.
The unicorn closes in on Ridley, giving us this awesome reference to Alien Cubed, but it doesn't end up attacking her. Instead, it just lays in her lap like a good boy. I can't express to you enough how much having a big fluffy unicorn lay in my lap like this would fix me. Shep takes advantage of a moment, tying up a unicorn to harvest later, and with comically terrible timing, Elliot leads the unicorn mother straight to him, and oh my god, she is so pretty, I love her. Just like the father, the mother also lays in Ridley's lap, and Shep also ties her up, congratulating Elliot and offering him 50% of this new business venture. Now Elliot has literally all he thought he wanted handed to him on a silver platter. 50% of the biggest gold mine on the planet. But instead of exploiting these creatures even further, he straight up murders Shep. Who straight up murders him back. Ridley pulls her father away while Shep gets one final kick to the head from one of the unicorns. Finally, Ridley and Elliot have a genuine heart-to-heart, and it's really sweet. She tells him about what she saw when she touched the unicorn horn, and how she knows that everything's gonna be okay. He's about to be with his wife again, and someday, she'll join them too. Mourning her father as he takes his last breath, Ridley is left alone with the two unicorn parents who have one more trick up their sleeve? I don't fucking know. Poor Rudd isn't dead. Big fucking shock. They bring Elliot and their baby back to life, running away immediately afterward, leaving Elliot and Ridley to deal with the incredibly incriminating scene, with the most batshit insane story to tell the arriving police. And Griff! Hey, Griff's back! They get shoved into the back of a police car and driven away.
It's a bittersweet ending, but I really like it. The film ends with them in a crappy situation, but they're actually gonna handle it together now. Oh, we're not done? So the unicorns run alongside them and they brace for impact as the unicorns crash into the police cars. Huh? So, like, they're just on the run now? I mean, you could have just showed up to prove to the police that you're real and that they weren't making up the whole killer unicorn thing, but okay. So that was Death of a Unicorn. What the fuck was that ending? All jokes aside, I really enjoyed this movie. I had so much fun with this one.
It has great gags, solid horror, a fantastic ensemble cast, and a really creative and fun premise.
There are also a shocking amount of little details that I wasn't able to catch my first time through, but loved catching the second time. Like how the Leopolds are constantly taking credit for things they have no right to.
Why don't you organize your thoughts, print some of this stuff off, and then we can present our research to my parents.
Well, you must stay for dinner, darling. Griff is making my famous moussaka.
Or how Elliot is only able to outrun the unicorn in the end because he partakes in the company fun run each year.
We want to know you as a person, not the VP of ethics and compliance that wins the company fun run every year.
Oh, right. Well, it's only a 10K.
I also love how these little details are used to further flesh out characters that are already great. Like, there's this scene where Shep regurgitates something his father says to him just one scene later in order to manipulate someone into getting what he wants. Unicorn weed.
Misguided, but at least she's got some intellectual rigor about her.
Keep pushing the science and maintain his intellectual rigor.
It's a super quick detail, but it really adds to Shep's character. He truly has nothing of his own to be proud of. He just leeches off of his family's name and image, never putting in any work of his own. And there are probably so many more little details like this that I missed or just don't have the time to mention. This is a really tightly written film. And as far as any big blaring negatives go, I'm honestly a little hard pressed to think of any. My only real major issue with the film is that the ending felt super unnecessary. Like, it did not land for me at all, and the pacing felt super off. Nothing too major, it's just the final act of this film feels a little rushed, especially with the death of Odell. Like, this guy is an absolute villain. I feel like his death should have been just a little bigger than this. And I guess if I'm really digging for something, sometimes the CG with the unicorns can look a little cheap, but it's really nitpicking. But those really are nitpicks. This film may not reinvent the wheel, but it is really good at what it does, being a great horror comedy in the same vein as Shaun of the Dead and Tucker and Dale. And I'm glad that I can finally allow myself to enjoy something like this without shame, because seriously, this is getting hard to hide.
Before the unicorn can close in on Elliot and send his ass to the quantum well, fuck. Quantum realm, Jesus Christ. I could not be making a nerdier reference whilst my speech impediment kicks in.